franktalks.com.
Listen to The Barry Morgan Show, live weekdays noon to 3 on CJAD 800 and CJAD.com.
Right now it's time for relationship news, and in for Dr. Lori Bettito is our good friend, dating and relationship coach, Frank Kermit. Hello there, Frank. How are you today?
Hello, Barry. I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Very good to have you. And Frank, let's get right into it. And let me give the phone number, by the way. Star Talk, star 8255. If you want to call from your cell phone, 790-0800. If you want to call from your landline, if you've got a question for Frank when it comes to dating and relationships, you can always text a question or comment to 514-800. And Frank, I see you've been a pretty busy guy. You've released this is your 16th ebook?
16th ebook, and I'm announcing it first time in the media on your show, Barry. My 16th appearance on your show.
Cool. The Frank Guide to Speed Dating. That's a great title. And somebody said, speed dating, what? Did you bring your methamphetamines? No, that's not what it's all about. It's a completely different circumstance. What to say, how you should act, what you should never talk about, those are the kinds of things we'll see in this ebook, Frank?
Exactly. This is based in about my personal experience with speed dating, then transitioning to running my own speed dating events. I did a newsletter where I offered articles on speed dating. I've collected everything in this 200-page ebook so that you can make the most of the time that you have together and the most matches possible.
Okay, so how should you act, and what should you never talk about? Which one do you want to tackle first?
Okay, well, first of all, how you should act. You have to remember you only have between 5 and 10 minutes on a speed date. So typical topics of conversation will not work, because if all you're going to do is make small talk, then it really comes down to, is the person physically attracted to you or not? And at that point, it's a yes or a no, and people can miss out on a really great potential match.
See, a lot of people right now, I bet, are thinking, yeah, well, it really all comes down to physical appearance because it's such a short amount of time.
Well, unless you know how to talk. So you have to ask value-eliciting questions. Don't just talk about what it is you do for a living and how you like the weather. You want to find out what that person's values are. So you use a lot of metaphor-type questions, figuring out what is that person's value system and if you're compatible.
So what's the first question you would ask, if for a guy's point of view, I guess? What's the first thing you should say to a woman when sitting across a table? You've never met this person before. You know you only have a few minutes. What are the first words that should come out of a guy's mouth?
Okay, you can either go with, let's say, a standardized question. What would you do if you suddenly got $1 million?
First question, really?
Yep, because, look, you can sit there and find out a little bit about the person's family or so on. Save that for the actual date. Initially, what you really want to find out is what their value system is. So let's have a fun question, okay? It's a game. What would you do if you suddenly came into $1 million? What's your priority? What's the first thing you would do?
Okay, interesting. And I guess the way you answer as well, because they probably throw it right back at you, right?
Exactly. Now, if the person says, the first thing I would do is I would quit my job, I would drop everything and go travel around the world, which is a very different value system than the person who says, well, I would pay off my debts, I would put money aside for my kids' education.
That's no fun.
May not be fun.
The kids' education, really?
It definitely shows a value system. Now, two people who would want to travel the world together upon coming into $1 million, they're a good match. Two people who are thinking about their family responsibilities, they're a good match. And that's what you're ultimately looking for.
Things that you have in common that you can really... Yeah, that's a pretty interesting take, Frank. Should people go solo, or should they bring some friends along as far as you're concerned?
You should always go solo, because what will end up happening is that somebody may match up with two people who are friends that went to that event together. You don't want to deal with jealousy.
That's true.
You don't want to deal in a position where, but I really like that person, but because that person also chose my friend, we're both supposed to give up on that person?
Okay.
If you go with your friends, understand that you and your friends may end up having first dates with the same people. If you're not okay with that, do not go with friends.
That's a good point. That's a very, very good point. And so what should you never talk about?
Things to never talk about. Don't talk about all the reasons why someone should not date you. And you would be surprised how often people bring that stuff up. Don't talk about your ex in any meaningful way. Save those conversations for when you're actually on a real first date.
So I was going to say, this applies to an actual real first date as well. But okay.
Not necessarily. When I'm speed dating, I'm not going to talk about my ex at all, because you only have 5 to 7 minutes, and you want to find out about that person and let them find out about you.
Yeah.
On your first date, if you do need to bring up your ex, especially if you have kids together or anything of that nature, you're allowed to talk about what you learned from the relationship with your ex. You're allowed to talk about what you learned from the breakup. You should never be putting your ex down, because you chose your ex. And if you keep putting your ex down, that's a reflection on you, not your ex.
It's kind of like a job interview, so to speak.
Exactly.
You don't want to diss your former employer, because your prospective employer might look at you and say, "Well, do I really want this person with me working on the payroll?" Is it a fair parallel? Is it
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. As you get to know a person and you develop more of an emotional intimacy, and most important, you develop a trust between the two of you, they will eventually find out all the details about your past life they need to know. But for those first few dates, it's on a need-to-know basis.
I don't know if they keep stats on this, Frank, or maybe you did from your ventures as a speed date organizer. What percentage of people who walk into a room walk away with a match, and how often does that actually lead to a long-term relationship?
Well, I can tell you that when I ran speed dating events, a number of people got matches. And even when I told them, hey, you got a match, the issue wasn't trying to get matches. There were some people who didn't get any matches. You had some people who got a lot of matches because they came across in a very charming, charismatic, fun-loving way. Those people who didn't get any matches, it's because they behaved in a way that creeped people out.
Mm-hmm.
Of those that did get matches, I have to tell you, a lot of people never pursue the matches they get. Even though I'm telling them, look, no, the person you wanted to date wants to date you. Oh, I don't believe it.
Really?
Yeah, and that was one of the most frustrating things about running a speed dating event. People who simply decide that even though they got the match, I can't believe I got the match. I can't believe the person wants to see me again. It must be a mistake. I don't believe it. I don't want to put myself out there and get rejected by the person I really want. Even
though they said they got a nibble and they're still saying, sorry, not so interested.
Exactly.
That's a lack of confidence, I guess.
You got it.
2:20, The Barry Morgan Show. We're talking dating and relationship news with dating and relationship coach Frank Kermit, in for Dr. Lori this week. And 2:20, The Barry Morgan Show. We're talking dating and relationship news with dating and relationship coach Frank Kermit, in for Dr. Lori this week. And you wrote in the Suburban about how your friends keep you single, sabotage between friends. What's going on here, Frank?
Okay, sometimes I'll be coaching someone, and it turns out the biggest reason they're still single is they listen to their friends more than their own instincts, and that's a problem. When they like someone, they want to date someone, they're thinking, oh, I really, really am interested in building something with that particular person. More often than not, the friends will come in and say, come on, you can do better than that.
Uh-huh.
I don't like that person, so I don't like that person. You shouldn't like that person.
I mean, you want your friends to like your partner, right?
And that's the problem.
That's the problem.
You can't let your friends' opinions sway you. You got to remember something. In 20 years from now, the chances that you're going to have the same friends, first of all, the odds are against it. Everybody's lives move on in different directions.
That's a good point, yeah.
The second thing is that your friends don't suffer any consequences from your choices. So if you give up on a really great partner and end up alone, your friends aren't the ones suffering for that. You are.
Well, what does it say about somebody who lets their friends influence them that much?
They're not a good relationship candidate. You dodged a bullet. Because when you pair up with somebody and decide, let's say, either to have children with somebody, or even if you don't have kids, if you invest in property together, you have to have the same vision. You have to want to build the same future. And if that person that you're with listens to their friends more than they listen to you, the person who's actually involved and invested in that relationship, that's a major red flag.
I hear you, Frank. And I wanted to ask you about this story as well out of the UK. a woman believed to be the first female convicted of targeting a man since revenge porn legislation was introduced a year ago. She's a 20-year-old woman. She uploaded photographs of her former boyfriend, intimate photographs, to Facebook and Twitter, set up a fake profile on dating site Plenty of Fish. You're not surprised to hear stuff like this is going on, right? Whether it's men or women doing it?
This is the first time that a woman has been convicted. She got a suspended jail sentence. She should have gotten 2 years in prison for what she did. I have been coaching for now over 15 years. So when I see something like this, especially for this particular case from the UK, this woman, she was 20 years old, they had only been together for 5 months.
Not a very long time, but still.
No, enough to get attached, and let this be a warning to everybody that, yes, you do need to get out there and date, but you also need to know how to spot red flags.
So
be very choosy.
He broke up with her, I guess, which is why she's posting all these images on the internet.
That's right.
Okay.
At the end of that relationship, he was afraid of her because of different behaviors that she exhibited over the course of dating.
Hey, men and women can be just as sick and twisted, right? I think that's...
Violence knows no gender.
There you go. There you go. This story's about a woman who got a lot of free meals at expensive restaurants, paid for by a lot of men. She was never attracted to any of them. Is that the story, Frank?
She dated hundreds upon hundreds of men that she met online. Very attractive lady. She's a blogger in New York, and she never had any interest in actually getting to know these men beyond a few dates. However, through conversation, she would pick and choose and say, I would really love to go eat at this fancy restaurant for this expensive dinner. And the guys pretty much said, okay, and they took her out. Because
they figure there might be some possibility of having a longer-term relationship, is that it?
For some of them, maybe they just wanted to hook up. For others, they were hoping it was going to turn into something serious.
Okay.
She would date each guy 1 to 2 times, and at one point she had about 100 different guys having gone through this process. So she got a chance to eat everywhere that she ever wanted to eat. Try every fancy restaurant, every fancy meal. She didn't pay a thing.
So what are you saying, that she misled people and that
Absolutely.
This was... Yeah.
Absolutely. And I got to say this, not the first time I've heard about something like this. And this is why I always advocate for a first date, you keep it inexpensive and everybody pays for themselves.
Really, yeah?
If somebody's not willing to pay for their own cup of coffee, first dates, coffee shop, cup of coffee, something inexpensive. If somebody's not willing to pay for their own cup of coffee just to sit down and have a conversation with you, chances are they weren't really interested in you to begin with.
See, but there you get into the whole thing where some people are more old-fashioned than others, and they think it should be, whether it's a cup of coffee or a meal, that the guy should pay the first. And I know not everybody agrees with that in this day and age, but still, a lot of people do.
Social norms. Let's be clear. Those social norms existed at a time when women did not work. Today, women are considered intelligent, capable, independent. They have careers of their own. Statistics show that universities are graduating more women than men. Oh,
no argument there. No argument there. But you think that most women, professional or otherwise, they're working at a bank, for instance, or a lawyer, whomever, whatever, that they would be the ones who have to pay at least 50% of the tab?
My feeling is that if you truly believe in equality, you have to demonstrate it through action. And you don't want to be in a position where you're fighting over a $20 bill when you could be meeting the most amazing soulmate of your life.
Fair enough. Frank, we're basically out of time, but listen, food for thought as usual. Appreciate it very, very much.
Barry, always a pleasure. Can't wait to talk to you again.
Great speaking with you again. There's Frank Kermit, dating and relationship coach, and he was in for Dr. Laurie tonight. Passion as usual, I guess. 10 o'clock this evening on CJAD.
News Talk Radio, CJAD 800, CJAD.com.
Need help with love, sex, dating and relationships? Visit